ஹலோ.
பிரதீப் சார் ஸ்டார்ட்
சார்.
பண்ணலாம் சார்.
ஆடிபிள் தானே சார்? ஹலோ.
கேக்குது சார்.
கேக்குது சார். ஓகே சார். Good evening, everyone. Today's topic is about lymphadenopathy and splenomegaly. Lymph nodes are a bean-shaped structure. They are located along the lymphatic channels. These lymph nodes are a secondary lymphoid organ. That means when a primary lymphoid organ is the one in which the T cells and B cells form and mature, and they become competent to perform their action. These things are இதெல்லாம் வந்து primary lymphoid organ நடக்கும். After that, once they become competent, they move to the secondary lymphoid organ. So lymph nodes and spleen are secondary lymphoid organ. They just store the received WBC, and whenever there is infection or a certain any inflammation or infection, they produce this T cells. So lymph nodes will be enlarged mainly due to proliferation or either due to infiltration. Proliferation of normal lymphoid elements, or maybe due to infiltration by phagocyte or malignant cells. This proliferation may be due to this infectious disease such as viral, bacterial, fungal, chlamydial, or rickettsial, or immunological disease such as SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus, rheumatoid arthritis, or Sjogren's syndrome. In malignant diseases, maybe due to primary malignancy such as hematological non-Hodgkin's, Hodgkin's lymphoma, etc., or maybe due to metastatic conditions. Like lipid storage disorders such as Gaucher's disease, Tangiers, etc., and endocrine disorders such as hyperthyroidism and other causes. So this table shows that causes of lymph node enlargement, either due to infectious disease such as viral, infectious mononuclear Epstein-Barr virus, CMV, other HIV, etc. Bacterial such as Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, etc. Fungal, histoplasmosis, etc. Chlamydial, parasitic, and rickettsial. And immunological disease such as rheumatoid arthritis, mixed connective tissue disorder, SLE, Sjogren's, etc. Malignancy such as hematologic, Hodgkin's, non-Hodgkin's, etc. Some or maybe due to metastasis. And lipid storage disorders such as Gaucher's, Niemann-Pick, etc. And endocrine such as hyperthyroidism, and other miscellaneous conditions such as Castleman disease, Kikuchi disease, Rosai-Dorfman, etc., Kawasaki disease, etc. So these are the conditions may lead to enlargement of lymph nodes. So the previous this table can be just remembered by this little mnemonic: cinema and divide. C for congenital conditions such as the storage disorders such as lipid storage disorders, etc. I for infection such as viral, bacterial. N for neoplasm, CML, ALL, etc. Endocrine such as hyperthyroidism. M metabolic for the same lipid storage disorders. A for autoimmune such as SLE, Sjogren's, etc. And D for degenerative conditions such as amyloidosis, other infiltrative condition. I for inflammatory or immune condition. V for vascular, such as Kawasaki disease. I for idiopathic, and finally D for drugs. Drugs such as phenytoin, carbamazepine, and allopurinol may also leads to enlargement of lymph nodes. Some specific conditions such as age, gender, location, these things may direct the suspicion to certain things. For example, when children under the age of 2 or 5 are presented with cervical or any lymph node enlargement, the primary suspicion must be infection, followed by the storage disorder such as lipid storage disorder, Niemann-Pick, Tangiers, etc. When an adult present with this enlargement, we may suspect autoimmune with the infection, somewhat similar autoimmune and infections. When the lymphadenopathy is present, when an old age person is presenting with this lymphadenopathy, means we have to suspect malignancy more than other infection or autoimmune conditions. Likewise, in gender, a male patient may be uh, more suspicious with malignancy, whereas in female patient, autoimmune may be suspected. Coming to location, mostly in India, we have to suspect TB. If any lymph node enlargement occurs, means we have to suspect TB. State-wise, in Kerala, filariasis are common, and Northeast Galas are common. In Africans, Burkitt's lymphoma, Castleman disease are common. In Western countries, histoplasma, such things are suspected in Western countries. So these are certain commonly involved lymph nodes: head and neck, upper limb, lower limbs. These are certain commonly involved. So mostly scalp infection or ENT infection or give rise to this head and neck and cervical group of lymph nodes. They are present in preauricular, postauricular, submental, submandibular, anterior and posterior cervical, and supraclavicular nodes. These nodes are enlarged when there is any head and neck infection, throat, ENT infection, scalp infection, etc. And coming to upper limb and thorax, they will involve the infraclavicular nodes, axillary group of nodes such as anterior, posterior, axillary, lateral group, apical central group, and epitrochlear groups. In lower limb, certain infections like cellulitis or any genital infection like LGV, syphilis, chancroid, etc., maybe leads to this inguinal group of lymph node enlargement. They are a horizontal group and vertical groups. So whether these lymph nodes are significant or எல்லா lymph நோடும் significant இருக்குமா அப்படின்றது we have to see that. In that case, a submandibular lymph node of less than 1 centimeter in children and inguinal node of approximately 2 centimeter or less than 2 or equal to 2 centimeter in adults. If these nodes are most commonly present and they are not that significant in this lymph nodes, we need not further evaluate anything. So these are incidental findings, or sometimes it may be a presenting signs and symptoms. For cellulitis, if in case of cellulitis, there will be lymph node enlargement of cellulitis of lower limb, means the inguinal group of lymph nodes will enlarge. And if there is any pharyngitis or inflammation of throat, a cervical group of lymph nodes will enlarge. So it may be a incidental finding or it can be signs and symptoms. But the supraclavicular and scalene nodes are always abnormal. Whenever there is a left supraclavicular node involvement, we should suspect any abdominal malignancy. That's Virchow's nodes. Left supraclavicular node is always direct towards abdominal malignancy. Similar, scalene nodes also, enlargement of supraclavicular and scalene nodes are always abnormal compared to this regional lymph nodes. So in a study conducted in 100%, out of 100%, 84 turned out to be benign in follow-up. Only 16% turned out to be malignancy. Malignancy either primary or metastasis or secondary malignancy. Out of this benign condition, 63 turned out to be non-specific and reactive. The remaining 21 direct towards the specific cause such as TB, toxoplasma, infectious mononucleosis, etc. So out of 100, only 16 turned out to be malignancy. That is how significant this. So when the nodes will be significant, suppose children presenting with the cervical or axillary nodes more than 1 centimeter, or inguinal nodes more than 1.5 centimeter, or epitrochlear nodes of any size, multiple sites and matted, if it is associated with any signs and foci of infection. So இதெல்லாம் இருந்தது அப்படின்னா significant lymph nodes. If it is in adults, if the same adult presenting with the cervical or axillary or more than 2.25 centimeter square, or inguinal nodes more than 2 centimeter. Actually, inguinal nodes less than 2 centimeter, now it's incidental findings that doesn't need any follow up. But if it is more than 2 centimeter, it may be significant. And epitracheal node more than 0.5 centimeter. And any involvement of Virchow node, that is supraclavicular node and scalene nodes, are significant. So after if the nodes are after proper history and examination, if the nodes are confirmed to be enlarged, and we have to proceed with the lab investigations. So lab investigations, CBC, routine CBC peripheral blood smear to rule out any abnormal blood cells, reticulocyte count, throat swab, monospot test to rule out any infectious mononucleosis syndromes, etc. Acute phase reaction, ESR, CRP, LFT, ANA, anti-CCP, etc., and bone marrow analysis. These are routine lab investigations to direct towards any specific etiology. After a blood investigation, we will be conducting some radiological investigation, such as X-ray, chest X-ray to rule out hilar lymphadenopathy. And secondly, USG abdomen. USG is more sensitive. It's easy, cheap, and fast. So it is a basic screening. But ideally, specific is for PET CT scan. So PET CT equal with MRI, but PET CT is more specific, accurate, and reliable. But practically, USG will be sensitive and basic screening. In USG, we have to look for this LS ratio, long axis versus short axis ratio. If it is less than 2, it is more suggestive of malignancy. In the first image, this is elliptical in shape. If this is elliptical in shape, there will be LS ratio more than 2. So this will be benign. This will be in the second below image, the LS ratio will be less than 2. So it will be malignant. So this is one of the USG finding of lymph nodes. So if it is turned out to be some malignancy, we have to look for this risk factors for malignancy. So these 8 things are risk factors for malignancy: age more than 40 years, duration of lymphadenopathy more than 4 to 6 weeks, any generalized lymphadenopathy, male sex, node not return to baseline after 8 to 12 weeks. Mostly some nodes will be regressing when we give time 1 month or 6 to 8 weeks, etc. But if it does not resolve, means we have to suspect malignancy. And supraclavicular location as left side or right supraclavicular. And constitutional symptoms such as fever, night sweats, weight loss, B symptoms, and hepatosplenomegaly, white race. These 8 things are considered risk factor for malignancy. After confirming with the routine blood investigation and X-ray radiological investigation, we will be doing some invasive procedure. In invasive, FNAC is not preferred as first line of diagnostic procedure because the aspirate will be very little when for diagnosis. So better FNAC is not a first line diagnostic procedure. We will go for a biopsy, either true cut or excisional, etc. So in the evaluation, after getting proper history related to autoimmune condition or family history of storage disorders, any infections, after doing physical examination and confirming the lymph node enlargement, we will be ruling out 3 main things. First is infections. Infection, any foci, any focus of infection, or any physical examination of infection are present. Secondly, autoimmune conditions. Thirdly, malignancy. So we have to rule out first 3. If it is unexplained by this, if it doesn't fit in any of the 3, then we will be labeling it as unexplained lymphadenopathy. So if it any infection are there, we going to treat the infection, and the lymphadenopathy will regress. Similarly, if the history directs us towards the uh, autoimmune etiology, we will be doing specific test for autoimmune conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, specific serological test. If it is positive, we have to treat the underlying autoimmune condition. If it is negative, then we will be labeling it as unexplained one. Similarly, if it is suggestive of malignancy, that is, if it fits under this risk factor for malignancy, then we will be doing. Then the procedure, other next upcoming procedure, will be directed against malignancy, such as excisional biopsy or something related to malignancy. If it is turned to be positive, we will be treating that malignancy. If it is turned to be negative, so if it is if doesn't fits in any three, that is infection or autoimmune or malignancy, if any, this doesn't fit in any three means, we'll be labeling it as unexplained one. Unexplained one means this other disorder, such as this Castleman disease, sarcoidosis, um, dermatopathic lymphadenitis, histiocytosis X. These other disorders are unexplained one. So we will be there will be specific biopsy findings for this unexplained condition. So after ruling out this three most common causes, we will be labeling it as unexplained one, and we will be proceeding further. So unexplained one, if still there is no any particular diagnosis means, we have to look for risk of malignancy again. So already there is no any risk for if it is malignancy means, we will be doing further procedure. But if there is if it is unexplained by means, also we have to look for a risk one. If it is a low risk for malignancy means, we have to another look for whether it is a regional or generalized lymphadenopathy. Regional means is confined to certain anatomic area. If it is generalized means, it involve more than three non-contiguous areas. So non-anatomically related areas, more than or equal to three irunduna generalized. So if the malignancy risk is low means, we have to look whether it is regional involvement or a generalized involvement. Regional involvement we have to observe the patient for 1 more month. If it is resolved, then we have to just follow up. If it is generalized involvement, we will be doing the investigations, routine investigations like CBC. Here we did only specific testing for autoimmune condition. Here we treated only infections. Here we specific tested for malignancy. But here we will be doing, when it is unexplained, we will be doing routine CBC, other test, other blood investigation. If still it is negative means, we will be doing biopsy. So biopsy of most abnormal node. If it is positive, then we will be treating that. If it is still negative, if the unexplained one, even after biopsy is still negative means, we just following up. So this is the evaluation. So infection, we have to rule out infection, autoimmune condition, malignancy. After ruling out, it will be, if any no particular diagnosis means, it is unexplained. If it is unexplained means risk of malignancy. If it is low risk means generalized or regional, then follow up. Clinical recommendation. So whenever a children present NECMOS, first looking after NECMOS, whenever it is less than 14 years of age, whenever the children presented with NECMOS, the first modality will be USG. Whenever the adult more than 14 years of old presenting with NECMOS means, ideal first line of imaging modality will be CT scan. So USG is CT scan. FNAC may be used to differentiate malignant from reactive lymphadenopathy. It is not a first line diagnostic procedure, FNAC. And finally, corticosteroids should be avoided until definitive diagnosis of lymphadenopathy is made. This history, these two scenarios, a 6 years old male child with 2 into 3 centimeter cervical lymph node, which is progressively increasing in size for 1 month, and a 56 years old male with a 2 cross 3 centimeter single soft cervical lymph node presence in 6 months. In the ரெண்டு conditionல first, in the first case we will be a 6 years old, probably a children we will be suspecting of infection or other any condition aside before storage disorders on the மாதிரி எதுவும். But here in 56 years old means we will be suspecting some malignancy. But here the point is that even if it is a children, if the swelling, if the lymph node is progressively increasing in size, serial measurement பண்ணும்போது ப்ராக்ரஸிவா இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆயிட்டு இருக்கு ஸ்வெல்லிங் அப்படின்னா more suspicious towards malignancy. So progressively increasing with short duration, even if it is in 6 years old or children, it will be we have to direct towards malignancy. But the same lymph node, even if present in 50 old age, 56 years old age la, the same lymph node, but it is soft here, it is soft and presence in 6 months. In this scenario, even if it is old age, we will not be suspecting malignancy, because the lymph node must be hard when it is said to be malignant. Hard, painful, non-painful, hard, non-painful, இந்த மாதிரிலாம் இருந்தது அப்படின்னா that will be malignancy. But here in this case it is soft and present for 6 months. So when it is progressively increasing in size with acute duration, look for malignancy. If it is soft and even if it is present for long time without any signs of infection, no need to suspect any malignancy. So secondly, splenomegaly. Some normal things related to spleen: location left upper quadrant, maximum cephalocaudal diameter is 13 centimeter, maximum length is 12 centimeter, maximum width 7 centimeter, size normal is less than 250 grams, size less than 250 grams, usually not palpable, only 3% palpable. So all palpable spleen are not disease. So in 3% of people, the spleen will normally be palpable. So palpable spleen nale diseased spleen அப்படினு சொல்ல முடியாது. So but still not always disease, but can suspect. So normal function of spleen mostly enlarged, lymph node will be enlarged in proliferation, infiltration. But here in spleen, it will enlarge in proliferation, infiltration plus congestion. Any blockage in the blood flow அப்படின்னா spleen will be get enlarged. So in this case, the normal function of the spleen will be maintenance of quality control over erythrocytes, mainly by two processes, culling and pitting. Culling is the removal of aged and defective RBCs. Pitting means any RBC inclusions such as parasites, whole jolly bodies and Heinz bodies. RBC inclusions are pinched off in the splenic cords. The spleen has some cords inside. When the blood flow through these cords, these aged RBCs and these inclusions are pinched off by these two processes, culling and pitting. So that is how this spleen will maintain the quality of RBCs. Secondly, synthesis of antibodies with white pulp. So red pulp will take care of this erythrocyte related process, and white pulp will take care of this antibodies, synthesis of antibodies. And finally, the removal of antibody coated bacteria and opsonine things are destroyed in spleen. So any increase in this normal function may result in splenomegaly. So any infection or any malignancy, whenever the work of spleen is more, it may result in splenomegaly. So classification of splenomegaly, it is both classification and grading is there. It is mild when the classification is based on the coastal margin. It is mild, moderate, and severe. Mild is less than 5 centimeter. When the lymph enlarges less than 5 centimeter below the coastal margin, it is mild. If it is 5 to 8 centimeter, then it's moderate. Massive splenomegaly is more than 8 centimeters massive. And Hackett's grading system, in grade 0, the spleen is just palpable, or spleen is normal or impalpable. In grade 1, it is palpable only on deep inspiration. In grade 2, spleen palpable on mid-clavicular line, halfway between umbilicus and coastal margin. Grade 3, towards the umbilicus, spleen expand towards the umbilicus. 4, spleen past the umbilicus, spleen goes past umbilicus. And grade 5, the spleen extend towards the symphysis pubis. So grade 0 to 5, and below the coastal margin, it is mild, moderate, and massive splenomegaly. So these are the conditions in which spleen will be enlarged, mainly due to the demand of splenic function. Whenever there is infections such as malaria, viral hepatitis, cytomegalovirus, viral infection, or any immunologic conditions such as anemia, thalassemia, spherocytosis, hereditary condition, etc. Whenever there is the work of spleen is increased, it will be enlarged. Secondly, infiltration of the spleen, amyloidosis, Gaucher's disease, Niemann-Pick's, any infiltrative disorder will making the spleen to get enlarged. And thirdly, it also get enlarges in obstruction whenever congestion related thing. Whenever there is a blood flow to the spleen is obstructed, it will lead to congestion and enlargement of spleen. So increased function, obstructions to the blood flow, and infiltration may cause enlargement of spleen. And finally, unknown etiology also, like idiopathic splenomegaly, iron deficiency anemia also leads to enlargement of spleen, and berylliosis. On after the so we just after collecting history and certain things, we will go again for examination. On examination part, inspection, when it comes to spleen inspection, percussion followed by palpation, then auscultation will be ideal. Inspection will be useful only in massive splenomegaly, where the spleen, there is a lower upper quadrant fullness, which disappears by deep inspiration on inspection. This will be only helpful in massive splenomegaly. On secondly, percussion will be 3 techniques are there: Nixon technique, Castle technique, and drop space obliteration. In Nixon technique, the patient will be in right lateral position, and we will be percussing on the posterior axillary line, obliquely towards the coastal margin. In Castle technique and drop space, the patient will be in supine position. In Castle technique, the patient will be in supine position and will be percussing in the lower intercostal space, that is 8th or 9th space, on the anterior axillary line, and he must be in deep inspiration. If it is dullness is there, then it indicates splenomegaly. Similarly, drop space, this space is a triangular space which is bounded left 6th rib superiorly, mid axillary line laterally, and left costal margin inferiorly. This triangle, usually it is resonant due to stomach, gastric contents, etc. But in case of enlargement of spleen, it will be dull to percussion. It may be also dull in obesity, food, right sided, left pleural effusion, and splenomegaly also. After percussion, palpation. Palpation also 3 to 4 methods are there. classical method is routinely used, like we put the patient in supine position and palpate from right iliac fossa to left upper quadrant. Secondly, bimanual palpation, the patient may be in supine or sometimes turns to right lateral position. One hand with the left hand to the behind the spleen, and we'll be pulling it, and we going towards the right upper quadrant. And third one is the hooking method, in which the patient in right lateral position, but here the examiner will stand in the left side and feels the spleen by hooking its fingers over the left costal margin. And finally, dipping method. Dipping method will be helpful in ascites related condition, where we have to exert a deep pressure. It is similar to this classical method, but we will be giving a deep pressure and moving towards the spleen. So classical method, bimanual palpation, hooking method, and dipping method. Both this percussion and palpation are not much helpful, but still it is just 56 to 80% sensitive. It's not much diagnostic. Uh, Massive splenomegaly is a condition in which the spleen may be enlarged below the costal margin more than 8 centimeter, and it weighs more than 1000 grams. It's massive splenomegaly. These are the conditions related to massive splenomegaly, such as CML, CLL, hairy cell leukemia, lymphomas, infiltrative disorders such as Gorgeous disease, sarcoidosis, hemolytic condition, autoimmune hemolytic anemia, polycythemia, and diffuse splenic hemangioperisis. So these four conditions are related with massive splenomegaly. Massive splenomegaly is when the spleen is more than 8 centimeter in size, and it weighs more than 1000 grams. So after examination part, we will be doing routine lab investigations, the CBC, blood smear, peripheral smear, reticulocyte count, blood culture, etc. So splenomegaly is different from hypersplenism. Hypersplenism is a condition in which spleen becomes increasingly active and then rapidly removes the blood cells. This hypersplenism will be seen when if we do CBC in a splenomegaly, enlarged spleen in a patient with enlarged spleen, if there is any cytopenias, any pancytopenia or bicytopenia, any cytopenias in routine lab investigation, we have to rule out this hypersplenism. It's a condition in which spleen becomes increasingly active and then rapidly removes the blood cells. Which in this triad, there will be a triad of splenomegaly. Either it is anemia, leukopenia, thrombocytopenia, or any combination of this, in association with hyperplasia of marrow. That will be indicated with the reticulocyte count. And the correction on the other triad, the triad third one is the correction of cytopenias. This anemia, leukopenia will be corrected by splenectomy. If this is the triad of hypersplenism, the likely cause of this cytopenia syndrome is increased sequestration of formed elements and the consequent enhanced phagocytosis by the splenic macrophages. So hypersplenism is different from splenomegaly. Following blood investigation, we'll be doing radiological investigations, such as, in this case also, USG abdomen is the procedure of choice, as it is simple and is convenient and easy. But ideal one, a specific one, is nucleus scan, such as PET CT, etc. CT also, CT no way better, or MRI no way better than CT. Both are equal diagnostic efficiency. But this patchy infiltration is in Hodgkin's disease. There will be some patchy infiltration of the spleen, which can't be taken out with this USG abdomen CT or MRI. In that case, we will be relying on this nucleus scan. So after the spleen is enlarged, if it is massive or more troubling, then we have to go for splenectomy. So when the splenectomy is indicated, less often splenectomy is indicated less often as a diagnostic procedure. So diagnosis as a diagnostic procedure, it is less often used, but more often used for symptom control in massive splenomegaly or CML. In this case, the symptoms are more such as that abdominal fullness, lower quadrant fullness. These symptoms are there, so it will be done for this mainly symptom control. Secondly, for disease control, such as rupture of spleen, hairy cell leukemia, etc. Second, hypersplenism for a cytopenia correction. If there is the cytopenias are very problematic, then go for hypersplenism. And the staging of Hodgkin's, the two staging of first and second staging of Hodgkin's. So splenectomy is more often used for symptom control, disease control, hypersplenism, and staging of Hodgkin's, the two in one, first and second stage. 10% is diagnostic. In splenectomy, the 10% is diagnostic, 44% is therapeutic, 20% is for staging, and 26% is incidental. So contraindication for this splenectomy is marrow failure. Whenever there is marrow failure, the spleen will be producing substances. So marrow failure, we can't remove the spleen. So the most serious consequence of this splenectomy is the increased ability of the bacterial infection will be there. That is the most serious complication of the splenectomy. So that too, that capsulated organisms such as pneumococcus, Haemophilus influenza, this Neisseria infection are the most serious thing in splenectomy patient. So we'll be giving vaccination. The pneumococcal vaccination should be administered 2 weeks before elective splenectomy, and the vaccination must be repeated 5 years post splenectomy. The pneumococcal conjugate vaccine available now is the Prevnar. It's a heptavalent vaccine, and also Neisseria meningitis vaccination should be provided for the splenectomy patient. Thank you.
That was very good presentation, sir.
Thank you.
So basically, lymphadenopathy அப்படின்னு சொன்னோம்னா மோஸ்ட் காமன் காஸ் நம்ம ஊர்ல என்னன்னு சொல்லலாம்?
லிம்போடினோபதி நம்ம ஊர்ல டிபி சார். டிபி இன்ஃபெக்ஷன், எனி இன்ஃபெக்ஷன்.
டிபி தான். So the most common cause of extrapulmonary TB is
most common
form of extrapulmonary
HIV மாதிரி இதுமா சார்?
So the most common form of extrapulmonary TB
மிலியரி மாதிரியா சார்?
TB lymphadenitis தான் first.
ஓகே
TB lymphadenitis தான் செகண்ட்.
எஸ் சார்.
TB lymphadenitis. So இப்போ பேசிக்கலி ஒரு புரோட்டோகால் என்னன்னா, ஒரு சைல்டு தான் மோஸ்ட் காமனாக பார்ப்போம். சைல்டு பிரசன்ட் வித் ஃபீவர், loss of weight with a cervical lymphadenopathy. So what you are going to do?
Child fever, loss of weight, cervical lymphadenopathy. Look for any ஏதாவது இன்ஃபெக்ஷன்ஸ் ஏதாவது இருக்கான்னு ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ரூல் அவுட் பண்ணோம் சார்.
So basically, even the protocol says, as for symptoms of cough with expectoration, you do a chest X-ray. Simply screen for TB. First step is initial protocol is screen for TB.
Yes, sir.
For TB itself turns out to be positive, like sputum gene export or something is positive, you presume it as TB and you start treatment. But what if the initial chest X-ray and screening for TB is negative? You will give him a course of antibiotics for 14 days. If you still feel the fever persists, then you try to look at the node. What do you do? Look at the node. Always remember, FNAC பண்ணலாம். FNAC is only presumptive, can be சும்மா வெறும் ஃபார்மாலிட்டிக்காக பண்ணலாம். But never make a diagnosis or start your treatment based on FNAC. You will be sued. There are a lot of
Oh.
instances where you will be sued, where the doctors have been sued just because they have not done excision biopsy. Without
Oh,
excision
sir.
biopsy, there is no treatment, there is no diagnosis.
Yes, sir.
எக்ஸிஷன் பயாப்சிலே வர்றது கஷ்டம். எக்ஸிஷன் பயாப்சி பண்ணும்போது எவ்வளவு பிரச்சனைகள் இருக்குன்னா, எக்ஸிஷன் பயாப்சி பண்ணீங்கன்னா நோடு வந்து ஃப்ரைபிளா இருக்குதா என்னன்றதை பார்க்கணும். நீங்க நோடு ஃப்ரைபிளா நோடு எடுக்கும் போதே ஃப்ரைபிள் ஆகலாம் ஃபர்ஸ்ட். ரெண்டாவது நோடு எடுத்தாலும் நோட ப்ராப்பரா டிசைட் பண்ணணும். அது லாங்கிடியூட்லாம் டிசைட் பண்றோமா, கொரோனாலாம் டிசைட் பண்றோமான்னு இருக்கு. இதெல்லாம் ஒரே ஒரு பெத்தாலஜிஸ்ட போனா சரி. பட் இதே ஒரு 2 பெத்தாலஜி லேபுக்கு பாதி சாம்பிள் அனுப்பிச்சிங்கன்னா சுத்தமா வராது. ஸோ ஆல்வேஸ் எங்க அனுப்புறோம், யாருக்கிட்ட முதல்ல அனுப்புறோம் பார்த்து அனுப்பணும் நோட. நீங்க ஒரே நோட ரெண்டா பிரிச்சு நம்மளே போடக்கூடாது. அந்த நோடோட டிசெக்ஷன் எப்படி பண்றோன்றத பொறுத்து இருக்கு. பெத்தாலஜி ஒரு சைட்ல மட்டும் இருக்கலாம். ஸோ நோட ரெண்டா பிரிச்சு 2 லேபுக்கு அனுப்பிச்சா ஒரு லேபுக்கு ஒரு மாதிரி வரும், இன்னொரு லேபுக்கு இன்னொரு மாதிரி தான் வரும். ஸோ அடல்ட்ல வந்து பிரசன்ஸ் ஆஃப் கேஷேட்டிங் கிரானுலோமஸ், நான் கேஷேட்டிங் கிரானுலோமஸ், குட் பி சார்காய்ட் அந்த மாதிரி. ஸோ இது வந்து கேஷேட்டிங் கிரானுலோமஸ் சரியா. ஸோ இஃப் 14 days course of antibiotic still doesn't then you do an excision biopsy, because there are a lot of instances where most of the time you always treat the patient every time, mostly almost 70% of the patients will be started as TB. But if the fever does not settle even after 1 month or 1 month of intensive course or 2 months of intensive course, then they will try to do an excision biopsy and then it will turn out to be a case of malignancy. So this is absolutely wrong. Always remember, try to do an excision biopsy. Without excision biopsy, there are only few conditions where you can proceed without any excision biopsy, provided first, when the patient's condition is not clinically stable enough for you to do an excision biopsy. One. ரெண்டாவது, when the node is not accessible for you to do an excision biopsy. The node is accessible-ன்றது இப்போ ஆல்மோஸ்ட் இல்ல. பட் சில பேஷண்ட் வந்து ரொம்ப கிரிட்டிக்கலி அன்ஸ்டேபிளா இருக்குன்னா தான் யூ அசியூம் இட் அஸ் டிபி, தென் யூ ஸ்டார்ட் பிரசன்ட் டயக்னோசிஸ். மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் த டைம் இப்போ ரெட்ரோபெரிட்டனல் லிம்ஃபோடினோபதி கூட யூ டூ சிடி கைடட் பயாப்சி, யூ ட்ரை டு டூ. த பேஷண்ட் இஸ் நாட் ஃபிட் ஃபார்னா தான் யூ பிரசீவ் இட் அஸ் டிபி அண்ட் யூ ஸ்டார்ட் ட்ரீட்மெண்ட். Okay. Otherwise, always do an excision biopsy. Remember, there will be many clinical scenarios where you will be forced to start the treatment, but do not start the treatment without you having the tissue sample in hand. Okay, so that's first. So excision biopsy பண்ணோம். அடுத்து certain conditions where certain இந்த ஏரியால lymph node வந்தா இது கண்டிப்பா significant தான் சார். அப்படின்னா என்னென்ன நோடு?
supraclavicular node, sir. which node on the left side? Right side supraclavicular நோடுமே இனி அந்த லங், தைராய்டு அந்த மாதிரி மெலிக்னன்சி ஏதாவது இருந்தது அப்படின்னா ரைட் சைடு சுப்ராக்லாவிகுலர் நோடும் சிக்னிஃபிகண்டா இருக்கும் சார். சைஸஸ் அதிகமா இருந்தது, அதான் மோர் தென் 2 சென்டிமீட்டர் அந்த மாதிரி சைஸ் அதிகமா இருந்ததுன்னா அதுவுமே சிக்னிஃபிகண்டா இருக்கும்.
சைஸ் இல்லாம சைட் வச்சே சொல்லணும்னா
சைட்டு மோஸ்ட்லி சுப்ராக்லாவிகுலர் சார். செகண்ட்லி
supraclavicular, scalene, அதுக்கப்புறம் anywhere epitrochlear node is always significant.
epitrochlear, okay sir.
epitrochlear, suboccipital, popliteal, ஓகேவா, இதெல்லாமே significant. இதெல்லாம் சும்மா யாருக்கும் ஈஸியா வந்துடாது. ஸோ இதெல்லாம் இருக்குனால நம்ம இதெல்லாம் இருக்குனால patient has to be investigated either for an immune deficiency or an immunocompromised state. These are things which cannot be ignored. So I'll tell you one case scenario. In the Dabiganle first case scenario adhan. A 42-year-old female presenting to you with in the question, patient presented to you with left-sided organomegaly and weight loss. How will you proceed? இதான் கேள்வி. இது வேற யாராவது ஆன்சர் பண்ணுங்க.
left organomegaly with weight loss.
அபிநயா சொல்லு. How will you proceed?
I'm not sure, sir.
Left-sided organomegaly, fever, anemia, weight loss. 42-year-old female. What is it that you want to do? தான் கேள்வி. சும்மா உங்களுக்கு தெரிஞ்சது சொல்லுங்க. See, I'll tell you. I'll just give you. I'll tell you one piece of advice. Okay. No matter whatever happens, whatever scenario, or even the diagnosis, what they want to hear, do not give them the diagnosis. Okay. You have to make sure whatever you have a protocol, make sure you fill that protocol first. Okay. So I just said it's what I went and said was they are given only it as a left-sided organomegaly. So what are the possible organs first? Everyone went and said it's splenomegaly. I said I want to examine this patient and I want to confirm what is the kind of organomegaly first. Then what is the possible organ, other organ that I'm referring to?
So pancreas, stomach, gastric, pancreas.
Other important differential DD first kidneys.
Kidneys. Okay.
Splenomegaly. சரியா? Again,
I see.
தான் அடுத்து பேஷண்ட் ADPKD இருக்குன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க. அதே left-sided organomegaly, if the kidney size is so small, like ADPKD is very massively enlarged kidney, will present it to you with your whole abdomen. ஓகேவா? will again present with anemia, fever, weight loss எல்லாமே இருக்க தான் போகுது.
I see.
Any renal cell carcinoma can also do that. So ஏதாவது ஒரு கேள்வி கேட்கறாங்கன்னா first you confirm your diagnosis. So I said I will want to proceed by first confirming whether it's a case of splenomegaly or renomegaly. How will you confirm this clinically?
Sorry, clinical history, renomegaly, any fever history, pain, renal angle tenderness la pain and the mari.
இதெல்லாம் எல்லாத்துலயும் ஒன்றும் இல்லை. எக்ஸாமினேஷன் பாயிண்ட்ஸ் தான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட். கிட்னிஸ்ல என்னென்ன?
Movement with respiration, sir. Splenomegaly will move with respiration. Renomegaly na it won't move. Retroperitoneal nala.
Okay.
Development.
Bimanually palpable, sir, kidney.
Bimanually palpable, palatable, able to insinuate the fingers between this organ and the left costal margin. Band of colonic resonance. Okay, so basically first you confirm your diagnosis. Then what the other said was everyone wanted to proceed with splenomegaly. They went and gave the differential diagnosis as cases of massive splenomegaly. I said then after confirming then the organ involved is probably spleen, then what will you think my next answer would be? If you confirmed it as splenomegaly, then what do you want to do next? அதுக்காக தான் இந்த லெசன் இந்த சாப்டர் அப்படி, அதனால தான் அந்த கொடுத்துருக்கு. நீங்க எடுத்த டாபிக் அதனால தான் அப்படி இருக்குது. ஏன் I confirmed it is splenomegaly, then what do I want to do next clinically?
Percussion.
First examine the patient for any other node.
Yes, sir.
அதனால தான் அது lymph node splenomegaly ஒண்ணா கொடுத்துருக்கு. ஓகேவா?
Okay.
So first confirm it as splenomegaly, then examine the patient for any other lymph node. So then the patient is having a splenomegaly with lymphadenopathy with the history of weight loss along with anemia. Then I would like to place my first differential DTS hematological malignancy. இப்படிதான் சொன்னோம். ஓகேவா?
Sure.
So அதனால தான் splenomegaly, lymph node, spleen is nothing but the biggest lymph node in your body. Okay. Spleen is nothing but the largest lymph node in your body, nothing else. So this is so அப்படி சொல்லிட்டு அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் இன்னும் டிடிக்கு போனோம். So அதுதான் நான் சொல்ல வந்தது. So significant massive splenomegaly are always significant. Try to look it out. So do not leave a massive splenomegaly without bone marrow evaluation. Okay, a CML might be in the initial accelerated phase or a blast phase or a crisis phase. Anywhere it might be. So you need to do a bone marrow examination. So again, spleen பத்தி சொல்லணும்னா, what are the other the patient presented you with a splenic infarct or a splenic abscess? What is your first possible DD?
SLE, some autoimmune conditions, sir.
Splenic infarct இல்ல splenic abscess. வேற யாராவது சொல்லுங்க.
Venous vein thrombosis.
ஃபர்ஸ்ட் DD நீங்க நிறைய பாப்பீங்க. அது அந்த ஒரு பேஷண்ட் வந்து அந்த ஒரு பிரசன்டேஷனோட தான் வரும். நீ ரெட்ரோஸ்பெக்டிவா நோண்ட எல்லாமே வந்து மாட்டோம். சரியா? ஸ்பிளினிக் இன்ஃபாக்ஸ், ஸ்பிளினிக் ஆப்சஸ் வருதுன்னா நீ ரெட்ரோஸ்பெக்டிவா நோண்டன்னு வச்சுக்கோ. Patient will eventually turn out to have a case of infective endocarditis, will have Osler's nodes, Janway lesions, will have Roth spots also. ரிமெம்பர் ஸ்பிளினிக் இன்ஃபாக்டர் ஆப்சஸ் கிளினிக்கலி நிறைய பார்ப்பீங்க. இன்ஃபாக்டர் ஆப்சஸ் வருதுன்னா அடுத்து நீ எக்கோ பண்ணி பார்க்கணும், கண்டிப்பா இருக்கும். மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் த டைம் இன்ஃபெக்ட் எண்டோகார்டிட்டிஸ் கண்டிப்பா இருக்கும். சரியா? ஸோ ஸ்பிளீனு, அதுக்கப்புறம் ஸ்பிளினிக் இன்ஃபாக்ட் ஆப்சஸ் சொல்லிட்டேன்னா, அதுக்கப்புறம் லிம்ஃப் நோட் பத்தி சொல்லியாச்சு. லிம்ஃப் நோட பத்தி இது சொன்னீங்களா? கிகுச்சி ஃபிஜிமோட்டோ கிமுராஸ் டிசீஸ்னா
காசுல சொன்னாங்கண்ணா.
கிகுச்சி ஃபிஜிமோட்டோன்னா இதெல்லாம் அன்காமன் இல்ல நினைக்காதீங்க. இதுவும் காமன். ஐ மீன் uncommon தான், but it is not very rare. You will also see cases like this. Kikuchi Fujimoto, Kimuras. Kikuchi Fujimoto
அது ஆனா பீடியாட்ரிக் ஏஜ் குரூப்ல தானே வரும்.
அதான் டேய், உனக்கு லிம்போடினோபதி நமக்கு ஈஸி, சைல்டுக்கு தான் கஷ்டம், தெரிஞ்சுக்கோ. லிம்போடினோபதி நமக்கு வந்தா கண்டிப்பா ஹிமோனோ காம்ப்ரமைஸ்ட் ஹெச்ஐவி இல்ல மெலிக்னசி காட்டி கொடுத்துரும். சைல்டுல கண்டுபிடிக்கிறது ரொம்ப கஷ்டம் லிம்போடினோபதியை. ஏன்னா சைல்டுக்கு வந்து நான் ஸ்பெசிபிக் இன்ஃபெக்ஷன்ஸ்னாலே அதிகமா வரும். ஓகேவா? சைல்டுக்கு வந்து நல்ல ரியாக்டிவ் லிம்போடினைட்டிஸ், அதிகமான ரியாக்டிவ் லிம்போடினைட்டிஸ் சைல்ட்ல தான் வரும். ஓகேவா? So you can always, it is not easy to that easily to diagnose. Only thing is you can easily diagnose a malignancy in child. ஓகேவா? Provided it is a malignancy. So அதுதான். So Kikuchi Fujimoto is necrotizing histiocytic lymphadenitis, Kimura is eosinophilic axillary abscess. ஓகேவா? So this is also they are also seen in our hospitals. Okay. So never forget HIV. HIV பத்தி சொல்ல வேண்டாம். You will always know HIV is because of hypergammaglobulinemia because polyclonal B cell inactivation. Okay. So Hodgkins பத்தி சொல்லணும்னா, Hodgkins லிம்போடினோபதி கேட்டோம். அடுத்த சிம்டம் என்ன நான் கேட்க போறேன்.
அந்த பி சிம்டம்ஸ், ஃபீவர், வெயிட் லாஸ், அந்த
ஏ சிம்டம்ஸா பி சிம்டம்ஸா கேட்கணும். ஃபீவர், வெயிட் லாஸ், அன்எக்ஸ்பிளைன்ட் வெயிட் லாஸ், ட்ரென்ச்சிங் நைட் ஸ்வெட்ஸ், இதெல்லாம் கேட்கணும். சரியா? சோ ஹாட்கின்ஸோட கிளாசிஃபிகேஷன்
ஆனார்பர் கிளாசிஃபிகேஷன் ஸ்டேஜிங்
கிளாசிஃபிகேஷன். ஓகேவா? சோ ஹாட்கின்ஸ்க்கு நல்ல ப்ரோக்னோஸா நான் ஹாட்கின்ஸ்க்கு நல்ல ப்ரோக்னோஸா?
ஹாட்கின்ஸ் தான் நல்ல ப்ரோக்னோசிஸ் சார்.
ஹாட்கின்ஸ் தான் நல்ல ப்ரோக்னோசிஸ். ஹாட்கின்ஸ் வந்து 5 டைப்ஸ் இப்போ உங்களுக்கே தெரியும், அதெல்லாம் சொல்ல வேண்டாம். ஸோ ரிகார்டிங் ஸ்பிளினெக்டமி, யூஸ் ஸ்பிளினெக்டமி அஸ் த லாஸ்ட் ரிசார்ட். யூஸ்வலி நம்ம பார்க்குற கேஸுக்குலாம் வந்து ஸ்பிளினெக்டமி பண்ண மாட்டோம். அது நம்மளை தாண்டி, நம்ம கையை தாண்டி இன்னொரு டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்டுக்கு போனதுக்கு அப்புறம் தான் அது ஸ்பிளினெக்டமிக்கு போவோம். லைக் ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ஒரு சிஎம்எல் வந்து ஸ்பிளினெக்டமி போற ஸ்டேஜுக்கு போச்சுன்னா அது நம்ம கிட்ட இருக்காது, மோஸ்ட் ஹெமட்டாலஜி கிட்ட தான் இருக்கும். ஓகேவா? ஸோ இந்த ஐடிபிக்கெல்லாம் கிடையவே கிடையாது இண்டிகேஷன், ஆல்மோஸ்ட் லாஸ்ட் ரிசார்ட் தான். ஸோ splenectomy வந்து don't think it is that easy, and also it is not one of the most foremost options. It is almost the last resort, splenectomy. So splenectomy பண்றோம் அப்படின்னா அது சொன்ன மாதிரி ஆப்சி பார்க்கணும். பட் ரிமெம்பர், ஆப்சி எல்லாம் வந்து ஆக்சுவலி நம்ம தான் வேக்சின் போடுறது இல்லை, ஆனா வேக்சின் நீங்க எழுதுனீங்கன்னா கிடைக்கும். சரியா? ஈவன் சர்ஜிக்கல் கேஸ்ட்ரோஎன்டராலஜி அண்ட் ஜெனரல் சர்ஜரி ஆர் கிவிங் வேக்சின்ஸ். Then why don't we give them vaccines? Okay, if you intend, you will get a vaccine. Pneumococcal pneumonia எல்லாமே நம்ம இதுல இது PCV7 இல்ல PPV இதெல்லாம் வருது. நீங்க இன்டென்ட் பண்ணி கண்டிப்பா நம்ம ஸ்பிளினெக்டமி பேஷண்ட்ஸ் எல்லாம் ensure they have been vaccinated or the patient is coming to, ஏன்னா ஹெமட்டாலஜி அப்ப பண்ணிட்டாலும் அதுக்கப்புறம் பேஷண்ட் உங்கள்கிட்ட ஃபாலோ அப்ல வரும்போது அட்லீஸ்ட் ஃபாலோ அப் டோசஸ் எல்லாம் போட்டிருக்கா அப்படின்னு சொல்லி பாருங்க. ஸோ இது அது சொல்லிட்டேன். அதுக்கப்புறம் so usually எப்பவுமே இன்னொரு என்னன்னா, always try to do CBC with ESR. Okay, RLD with LDH. இதுக்கு சிம்பிள் ரீசன், அனிமியா இருந்தா ESR தேவைப்படுன்றதை தாண்டி ரெண்டும் ஒரே சாம்பிள் தான் பார்க்க போறோம் நம்ம இதுல. ஓகேவா? ஸோ ட்ரை டு டூ, அதை இப்பயே சொல்லி பழகுங்க. அதே மாதிரி CBC with ESR, RLD with LDH, அதே மாதிரி செஸ்ட் எக்ஸ்ரே PAV with the lateral view. Don't try to do PAV alone. Try to do PAV with the lateral view. சரியா? ஸோ அவர் சொன்ன மாதிரி மற்றதெல்லாம் தான் ஸ்பிளினெக்டமி, ஹைப்போஸ்பிளினிசம். ஸோ வேற எதுவும் பெருசா இல்லை. மினின் டிசார்டர்ஸ் எல்லாமே சொல்லியாச்சு, பெர்லியோசிஸ் எல்லாமே. வேற என்ன சொல்றது, மற்றபடி இந்த அனிமா இந்த டிசார்டர்ஸ் எல்லாம் இருக்கு, அதெல்லாம் அப்ப நம்ம பார்க்கலாம். இதுல எதுவும் ஸ்பெசிஃபிக்கா பெருசா இல்லை. ஸோ எனிஒன் எல்ஸ்? And also, don't forget Castleman's disease in the diagnosis of lymphadenopathy. Okay. So, Castleman's disease, sarcoid, வேற எதுவும் பெருசா இல்லை நான் அதை சொல்றதுக்கு. ஓகேவா? ஸோ கனெக்டிவிட்டி ஃபீமேல்னா கனெக்டிவிட்டி டிஷ்யூ டிசார்டர் டோன்ட் ஃபர்கெட். வேற எதுவும் பெருசா இல்லை. சரியா? anyone else? We'll close then. Thank you.
Thank you now.